Welcome back to FTP Speed Shop PodCast, the podcast where we talk about what you talk about in the garage because, hey, we're in the garage. I'm your host, Mike Early, and today I've got my good friend, Justin.
Hello.
How's it going?
Doing pretty good. Yourself?
Great. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take care of some quick business right here. I want to go ahead and let everybody know that the car show, FTP Speed Shop second annual car show, will be on October 8th of 2022. And you can find all the details for that shortly here at ftpspeedshop.com. And this episode is sponsored by ftpspeedshop.com. So go check it out, get yourself some merch, and help support the channel. With that being said, let's get into it. So, Justin, what are you working on? What do you got going on in the garage?
More than I should. Currently working on my 64 C10 pickup. I did the LS swap. I think it's been almost 2 years. It's hard to, I don't remember. Time flies. But I've had it apart.
Time flies when you're LS swapping.
Yeah, for sure. I get it done, start driving around, having some fun, to think of something else I want to do. So then I take it back apart, you know.
Definitely true. Like that list always gets longer. It never gets shorter. My punch lists always get longer. I've never made one get shorter. I don't know.
Yeah, everything you dig into, you find something else that you need to replace. So I had some C-notch kit that was sitting in the garage, and I was like, hey, trying to kind of clean up stuff around the garage before starting any other projects, using up materials that I already had. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I should go ahead and do that, like I started it in wintertime thinking, I'll have plenty of time to put it back together. Well, we didn't have a winter this year, and it's still not back together, but because I got had some noise in the rear end, so I'm going to replace the carrier bearings and that and put it back together. But I got the C-notch kit all welded in, took the differential out and figured, okay, I'll fix this clunking noise that I got, but now is do I just replace the bearings that are bad, or do I put in an aftermarket posi unit, and go the whole 9 yards? Because I'm like, if I put it back together, then I have money to put towards some other things, because there's a lot of stuff I want to spend money on, and there's just not enough money to go around.
I know that feeling.
It seems to be a pretty common thing with an LS swap too.
Or just cars in general.
Yeah, our hobbies are pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's a never-ending snowball for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the process of redoing the rear end and the Chevelle also. I got a 12 bolt for it and trying to nut up to buy the parts, and I just don't want to spend the money because I just spent money on the 6-liter. So,
oh wow,
yeah, it's like it kind of everything snowballed at one time.
Yeah, I didn't realize until about 3 months ago that the 12 bolt in a car and a 12 bolt in the Chevy trucks were different, because I was watching YouTube videos trying to figure out how to fix mine. Yeah, and the guy was working on a Chevelle, and I was like, that looks nothing like what I got, but
Are they the same, strength-wise?
They're the same strength-wise. It's just like, for one thing, the obvious thing I noticed was like the trailing arm perches on mine. Don't think they have those on the Chevelles, because are those coil? Use coils. Yeah. Mine is too. It's just in a different location. But yeah, they got that rear trailing arm suspension on the C10s. So to where the mounts to the axle, it's got a couple of perches on the bottom that I guess aren't on the car.
Was it Chevy trucks were the coil rear suspension and GMC were still leaf spring, or what was the difference? Because there was something weird in there, wasn't there? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know all the details on it. I ran into a guy at a car show, and I was looking at his truck, and I was younger, dumber. Well, I'm still dumb, but
now you're just a little old. And,
right. But this guy, I'm like, oh, you swapped it for leaf springs? And he's like, no, that's how the GMCs came. And I was when I figured that out. So I don't know what years, if they at some point switched to coil springs or not. But
because my dad had a 69 GMC, and it was definitely leaf springs in it. And then I don't remember whose I was looking at, and I was like, you don't have leaf springs in here. Why is that? It doesn't make sense. Like, why? Because they're the exact same trucks nowadays, and they've been the exact same trucks probably since 73 and newer. Yeah. So it's just weird that they made little subtle changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually it's just the cosmetic stuff like the grill that I would catch on to, but I thought everything else was the same. So
So you're gonna have your LS swapped, C-notched, new rear end pickup truck out this summer?
I'm hoping to.
Yeah.
I was waiting on my new gas tank to show up before I finished welding up some of the C-notch stuff. I had put a couple of braces in to kind of solidify everything, but two of them I just kind of tacked in place because I didn't have the rear end actually installed in the vehicle or the gas tank, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to interfere
with that and have any fitment issues.
Yeah, because I dropped the money and went with the Boyd's Welding EFI gas tank. So I got it. I sat it in there. It didn't fit, so I'm glad I'm gonna have to take that bar out.
Oh,
so
perfect.
I was like, hey, at least I didn't fully weld it in.
Yeah, 2 tack welds instead of an entire
Yeah.
mile of bead.
Yeah, you only learn that kind of shit from doing it wrong, once or twice maybe. So.
Oh yeah, I definitely like to weld stuff in the wrong spot and grind it and hack it out, and then it just looks shittier than it should have.
Yeah, I know. Already I'm looking at the C notches and going, I might have gone a little overkill on the C notches because they send you the kit, and it's like you can use however much of it you want.
Oh yeah, it's kind of
like
universal.
there's really and there's no instructions or anything, so it's like not even to like where it should line up at. I had the bolt-in like mini C notch in before, and that used some of the existing bolt holes before, so like you'd pop out the rivets and you would use some of those bolt holes to line up the C-notch kit. But this weld-in kit didn't, like I said.
Yeah, because with the bolt-in one, you basically bolt it to the frame, right? And then you just hack the frame out.
Yeah.
Scribe it.
Yeah, so I did it probably the wrong way. I held it up and took a Sharpie and kind of traced the line or whatever.
I don't know.
Got it pretty close.
I've never done it, so
yeah.
I mean...
It was nerve-wracking because I had to cut it before I could actually slide the bolt-in part over. So I was like, in my head, I'm going, I would love to have it supported before I cut it, but that's just, like I said, I probably did it wrong. But
I wonder too. I mean, I understand like with an engine, it's down to the thousandths of an inch and down to the gnat's ass, but like, and I'm sure it's that way with suspension too. But I see a lot of hacked up cars on the road, and I don't know how.
What, SEMA or
no? I've never been to SEMA.
Me either. I want to go. I've heard stories
this year, maybe, but yeah, I wonder how crucial it is that you've got that thing perfectly straight.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you won't be able to line it; it'll dog leg or something. But
yeah, I'm hoping that.
I feel like everything's a lot more forgiving than we give it credit for.
Right. Yeah. Especially with all the different adjustable, end links and arms and stuff. Yeah. Like I said, I get into one thing and then it's, now I have to address this, or this, because it's like, will I drive it this year? I'm like, I could just put it back together the way it is. It ain't going to be right. But, because those trucks from the factory have a panhard bar rear suspension.
Yeah.
And so with the airbags, you're just airing up and down. The axle is shifting side to side. And I've been told, like the longer the panhard bar, the better, the less it'll shift. It's all math stuff that I actually did really good at in high school, but it's been, 20 years since we were in high school? And, you don't use it.
For me,
don't use it. You lose it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that
Google's pretty awesome.
I'm pretty sure that's involving your penis, not math skills.
That too. Well, if
you
you never had it, how could you lose it, right? But yeah, so I don't know. I know I could take the time and make it all right, but in order to be able to drive it again this year, I've kind of contemplating, which parts I'm going to actually see through like 100%, and the other ones I'm going to have to maybe address next winter or the winter after or something. Because yeah, that's one thing people always ask me, oh, you ever going to do a full frame off restoration on your truck? And I go, no, because I wouldn't.
Full lifetime.
Well, yeah, and then for somebody with ADHD, the chances of getting it all put back together, before getting distracted with something else.
I started doing a little bit of research on like 4-link suspensions and different whatevers, and the Watts link, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is that centering pivot guy that gets rid of the panhard bar.
Yeah.
That seemed like a pretty cool concept, but it seemed like a lot more work too.
Yeah. And I was just talking to somebody about that yesterday. Funny you brought it up. And they told me to get the panhard bar get the idea out of my head. Because I'd been watching YouTube videos and sending that person YouTube videos. And they were like, I just want you to completely forget about it. Just don't. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I found a kit that somebody makes. It's like it bolts on to the to the cover of the differential, and then is spaced out, and the brackets, bolted to the frame on both sides, and you figure out your lengths, get your measurements all right. It looked easy, but then again, I'm just looking at it, and I've never had any experience with it. So
it's funny how the idea you get from a magazine catalog or whatever, you're like, or even just a YouTube video where somebody's doing it, and they don't show all the bullshit that went into like getting it lined up and set up. They don't show the 15 minutes like going
for sure, because
right in,
because 20 years ago I'd have been like, oh hell yeah, I could do that, but now I'm pretty sure there's more to it than what you're showing me. Like we were talking about editing earlier. You edited a lot of stuff.
You definitely edit all the cuss words out, and you cut right back to you smiling. Got it in. Just that easy. So
hashtag winning.
Right. It definitely is a lot of that. I know, because nobody wants to. Well, hell, you're putting yourself out on the internet. Nobody wants to look like an idiot, like because somebody's gonna shame you. Someone's gonna say you did it wrong. Well, the way I do it is this way. So when you put and then what I found too is like, I just fuck stuff up sometimes and just screw it. People are going to make fun of me, then I don't care, I guess. I mean, I cry at night, but I mean, that has nothing to do with YouTube comments.
Right, yeah. I don't know. I was just telling somebody, a newer technician at work the other day, it's like they felt really bad because they screwed something up and kind of hosed me on my weekend shift, and I was like, look, I'm not trying to make anybody cry or not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just here to be like, what can I do to help you not do that again? Because I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've never made a mistake or that I'm not going to make any more mistakes. My goal is to not continue to make the same mistakes. So it's like, as long as you learn from a mistake, then I would hope that, that it's good. But
it seems to be easier said than done with a lot of people.
At least at work, there's no alcohol involved, though. So,
So there's even less excuses.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know. My biggest thing is I get in a hurry, and then I just rush because I know I have an hour, then I have to get this done in an hour. And the second I do that, I could get it done in an hour if I wasn't under that time constraint. But when I'm under that time constraint, I just rush and I screw stuff up, or I forget something in the truck, or I forget something, and then it takes forever, and then I put something on backwards and I have to take it all apart, and I'm even more in a hurry and even more rushed, and then it just snowballs into just having a terrible time.
Some people work really well with deadlines, and other people, it's just kind of like a psychological mind fuck.
Well, I mean, you know me and deadlines.
You do.
What was it? Was that when I first painted the truck?
Right.
And where the hell did I see you? Was that at Riley's or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I was going in to get something. You're like, you going to take the truck on the cruise? I think so. The cab's not on yet, and blah, blah, blah. I still got a lot of stuff to do. Actually, I had the cab on, and maybe it was the...
Right, no, from what
the cab was... The doors weren't on. The doors weren't even painted yet. The fenders were painted.
I remember running into you, I don't know if it was that year or the year before or a different year, but like ran into you, and it was the day of the birthday cruise, and you're like, I don't know, can you come help me put the hood on or something? Because it was like, I was like,
that
sure.
Okay? So did I see you in the morning of
the
birthday cruise?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I was in O'Reilly's at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and the birthday cruise were meeting up at noon or 11.
For
or
some
something.
reason, I was at O'Reilly's at that time too. So I don't know.
Because we were thrashing, trying to get something done.
Yeah, yours is a little more extreme than mine. Mine was like, oh man, should I?
Hey, you want to come help hang the doors? Because that's really hard to do by myself, and then get the hood bolted on. Because I couldn't hang the front fenders until the doors were on, so they were just kind of sitting there. So I had to get the doors on, and then I could. I'm an idiot.
Hey, but you made it.
And it broke down on the second stop and had to be trailered home. And I was on 15 hours of sleep that week, all week. When I got in the Duramax with the trailer and the AC on, I was falling. I was everything I could do to stay awake to pull that thing in. And then I had to take it over to the father-in-law's party. They had their hog roast that same day. So pulled in on the trailer and partied there. I think I left it there that night. No, I took it home.
I remember doing some of those long late nights and early mornings or all-nighters on Derek Turner's Honda way back in the day with Derek and Mike Hartshorn. I used to hang out with those guys. It was kind of funny because it was it'd been probably a year or so since I'd seen anybody. I did my disappearing act I used to do when I was younger. Got in a relationship or whatever. Nobody saw me then, and then we broke up. And I ran into Mike Hartshorn at Hobbytown. And he's like, hey, you remember where my mom lives? You swing by sometime. Derek and I are always out there working on something.
Yeah.
And so it was like the next day or whatever, I went over there. And then for the next 3 years, that was just every night going over and working on stuff with those guys, hanging out, And yeah, it was fun. Like, because when I started going over there, it was like, yeah, sure. You want to help out? Sure. All right. Scuff this firewall, this car we're painting, which ended up being it was a Bryce Racix Honda Civic or something. And it's like, yeah, the whole community or circle is just like started meeting everybody back then, and it's only gotten bigger. It's kind of cool, but yeah, it was just funny.
That would have been around the time probably you had that S10 truck.
Yes, yeah,
that thing was cool.
That was fun. Yeah, it was the black one, right?
Yeah,
it was a 2000 GMC Sonoma, same thing.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, that's, like other people are more picky, but if I tell the story, other people are going to call me out. So no, but yeah, that was a fun truck for a little 4-cylinder 5-speed. It had just the right gear ratio and everything that every time you'd turn left going through an intersection, when you shift a second, you could just sling that thing as far sideways as you wanted.
Yeah, get the
just hanging it out there.
Was that on air ride or was it just slammed?
Eventually, the first couple of years, it was just a static drop, and then hanging out with Mike and Derek, we ended up putting air ride on it. That was quite the process, and they made it look easy. So
yeah, did it have super taillights in the roll pan?
Yeah, because when I was, I don't remember if it was the first winter I had it or the second winter. So it was winter, and I took and put a bunch of cinder blocks in the bed of the truck for weight, for traction. Yeah. They were like against the tailgate though. And I've learned since then that you should probably put the weight in front of the axle, because I was going, I don't remember where I was at, but it was a 4-lane road, and I was passing a school bus and hit like some of the rutted like slush or whatever, which sent me into like a tailspin, like a hard tail whip, because all that freaking weight up against the tailgate. Oh. So the truck spun around like 180 degrees, but never came all the way back around. It just like was leading me like I was a dart,
Yeah.
And crossed the center lane. And then, like, when I spun around, I saw some lady like 3 or 4 blocks away that was coming at me. And I'm like, surely she'll have enough time to stop, Mm-hmm. And, she freaking plowed right into me, which was great because, like, when the cops showed up, they thought she rear-ended me, And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah, no, I actually was heading eastbound.
Yeah, no, exactly.
She was driving reckless.
Yeah, that was... It was terrible because they're like taking her away. The first thing I hear, she's like, "I can't move my neck," and I'm just like, and she didn't have her seatbelt on either, And I'm like, man, somebody saw an opportunity, but it was my fault. I was a dumb kid doing something I shouldn't have been doing and lost it. So, but yeah, so at the body shop, while it was at the body shop, I talked it over with the guys and was like, if I buy some different parts, can you? They're like, your insurance is paying this much, so if it's over that, then you're going to pay it. Yeah. So I had them shave the tail lights and put the roll pan on with the Toyota Super tail lights, and yeah, it was a pretty hard hit though, because it shoved the box into the back of the cab, so they had to redo all the back of the cab too. Yeah. Yeah. So it
kind of sounds a little like Ricer or maybe
like Mexican, looking back now, and I'm going
like super lights in it, but it actually looked pretty cool.
Yeah, I found some pictures of it the other day, and I was like,
yeah, you have to send me one of those, because I definitely would like put one up on the screen.
Yeah, the saddest thing for me is I can't find the pictures of. I found the pictures of it before it was airbagged, and I've only found like 2 or 3 pictures of it airbagged, and it was like sitting in Mike Hartshorn's mom's driveway, and it was a bad quality photo, probably taken with a disposable camera, because this was around 2002. No, see, the truck was it would have been like totally 2003, 2004.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking it would have been. But yeah, it is crazy too how much picture quality has gotten for like digital pictures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's insane because I go back through a bunch of my digital pictures, like when we started getting digital cameras and all that stuff, and I'm looking at and I'm like, I don't even think this is. I don't think this was shot with an actual camera. It looks, it's like, it looks like somebody just dotted a bunch of different colors on. It's like so pixelated and so grainy. It's like that is a terrible picture. But at the time, it was like, look at this.
Yeah, I can
see my car. It's like, yeah, they're terrible. Nowadays, you just got what, 18 megapixel. I don't know if that's right in your phone.
I don't know. I remember like my first smartphone that would play music, but it was like from a memory card, and it was like 256 megabyte or whatever. So it was like, a couple songs that you could have on your phone. It was like, but it was the coolest thing, and now it's like, now I have a laptop basically in my pocket that, just does everything. I had a laptop when I bought my house 11 years ago. I bought a laptop. So I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to use this to pay my bills and everything. I still have it, but it's more of a paperweight. I tried downloading some app, or something. What was it? God, now I can't remember.
You're supposed to start being responsible before you get a house.
Yes, people say that, I'm still not sure if I'd fully claim it either. I mean, now having a kid too, 40 years old with an almost 1-year-old kid, I think I should have, I don't know if I should have started sooner or what. I question myself all the time because it's like, now I don't have the, well, I don't want to say I don't have the financial struggles, but it's like not like 20 years ago, I didn't have a pot to piss in. So I'm like, the having a kid then would have been a lot scarier, I feel like. And now it's like, it's not as scary, but I don't have the energy to keep up with her.
Yeah. They always say there'll never be a right time to have a kid,
for sure,
because you're either too poor or you got this going on, or now I'm too old, so you're better off just freaking just get it done. And I don't know. I mean, I think I'd probably be better off. I don't know. That's hard to say, because once you have something, then you just figure out how to make it work. So it's kind of weird. Yeah.
Yeah. People always told me that, like, oh, if you wait until you're ready to have kids, you're never going to have them. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm ever ready. I just felt like maybe I could be in a better, more responsible spot, like job wise, like, when I was working concrete, 12 years ago as my full-time gig, or no, 13, 14 years ago as my full-time gig, it's like, it's seasonal work, it's like 9 months out of the year, maybe you get to work, I mean, there's always something else to go do, but I wasn't budgeting my money. I wasn't doing anything. So I was just like,
you got a paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Go buy car parts.
Yeah. So it was,
Yeah. And it definitely is better, I think, to wait until you're somewhat established than to just have a kid at 14 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
So that
do I end up on MTV or anything like that?
And never mind, I take that back. The best thing you could do would be a teen mom and get on MTV, because all those bitches are rich now.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Where's our get rich scheme?
Scheme, yeah.
Yeah, scheme.
Quick scheme. You're on it. You're on my get rich quick scheme.
Right,
it's been 2.25 years in the making, and still haven't seen $1 from it. So it's really working out well.
It's a long-term game, right?
Yeah, this is my retirement. This is what I want to do when I retire.
Or what do they call it?
Yeah, no, I don't really know what my get rich quick scheme is. Thought it was going to be Bitcoin, and that's worked out pretty well, but I haven't sold any. That's the problem.
I haven't got into it. People are like, oh, if you haven't got into it yet, then you've missed the boat. And I'm like, I don't know. I struggle with the can't see, feel, touch it type thing, And
if there's an EMP or something, then everything goes down and we've lost all of our ability to use it. It's not. Everybody says it's the way of the future and how everything is going to go money wise. I just don't see how it works, especially in the world where Russia or China is going to freaking detonate some sort of nuclear warhead in the atmosphere and knock out all of our our electrical grid and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, then your Bitcoin doesn't work. So now you had $4 million in Bitcoin, but you don't have anything to show for it because it's gone. It's somewhere. I don't know where.
My other problem with it, I think, why I've tried to stay away from it maybe, and it's probably stupid, but I get really hyper focused on stuff like when I get into something.
Yeah.
And I've seen some of the guys that I work with that are just like constantly like checking their phones and stuff, and they're like, oh God, yeah. Or it's like they're either super happy or they're super pissed, you know? And I'm like, man,
Bitcoin's taking a big juicy dump again.
Yeah, and I'm going, I don't think I have any time left for that. It's like there's guys at work, they're like, oh man, you gotta get TikTok, you gotta download TikTok, and I'm like, no, I don't. I said I waste enough time on my phone as is. I don't need anything else, like
just to aimlessly scroll.
Yeah, it's like, you know, hours go by.
It is funny too that it, like the amount of apps we have, like you got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got YouTube, you got Twitter or whatever, and like it's all the exact same thing, just in a different layout.
I'm like, I don't know why it takes the time.
Scrolling through one, and then you go to the other one, and it's like
same stuff,
same shit. And then you go to the next one, you're like, it's pretty much the same shit.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes I'm just like, I gotta just put the damn phone down and just wipe my ass and get up about my business.
Right? Yeah. I know some of your first YouTube videos, you were talking about something about just like just getting out of the garage and doing something, whether it's something purposeful or whatever, but just getting out to the garage and making something happen. And I kind of taken that to heart just because it was like I realized how much time I was wasting, you know. So it's like, but then the problem was I put a TV in the garage with the Fire Stick on it, which I'm like, you know, at first it was like, I'm going to use this when I'm troubleshooting cars and stuff. And then when, you know, and then sometimes I turn music on, you know, and, but then other times, you know, it's like, I'm going to take a break, you know, and it's like, you haven't done shit yet. What are you taking a break for?
No, it definitely is like, putting the TV in the garage, it was the best and the worst thing because I don't know, Hensley's calling me for some reason, but putting the TV in the garage was one of the best and worst things I've ever done because I have access to you know, Pandora or music or whatever and YouTube and informational sorts, and I listen to some different podcasts, so you know, just crank a podcast up and go to town and work. But yeah, sometimes I do find myself just, a combination of chairs and a TV. Chairs were the worst because then now I can just sit down and be like, oh, I need to take a break. Oh, give me my beer. And
especially a comfortable chair. Because there was an office chair that got booted out of the house, and I was like, oh, it's too good to throw away.
That was the first chair that was in here.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm going, oh man, I should get rid of this thing. And, I don't know. Yeah,
if you just getting out and just doing two things really: making a list of everything you have to do, and then
I was missing something.
The list is really important for me anyway, because then I can see progress, and then, or I don't have to think about the next thing I have to do. I can just go to what's next on the list, or what's going to take about 30 minutes to do.
Right. Yeah. And it's like you hit a roadblock. Like I don't have enough time to do this. Then okay, well, I can do that.
Yeah, I could go try to get my horns to work, and then 4.5 years later, I still don't have horns in any of my vehicles.
I kept hearing about that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I only paint red cars, and I can't make a vehicle with horns. So those are my two things. That's my catchphrase. Yeah, just getting out and doing something. That's, I don't know. I hope, I worry some about the future and people not
doing
things and being just
or wanting to learn.
Totally self-involved with themselves and the internet and what they're doing online and made-up world. Yeah, I'm just starting to sound like an old cranky man.
No. I mean, like I'm right there with you because like people started talking about that meta, and I'm like, they're like, you gonna check that out? I go, no, dude, no, because like just from the sounds of it, what I understand, I was like, it reminded me of this movie called Gamer. It was, I can't remember. It was not. Now I could remember the actor would be great, but it was basically
Keanu Reeves. That sounds like a movie.
No, it wasn't. Gerard Butler, I think. But he's a soldier.
If I would know who that was,
right? Yeah, I think that's because I'm gonna say that and that'd be the wrong movie. I'm like, I get him and this other guy mixed up all the time.
You know what? Right now we're splitting hairs that don't matter.
Right, but the movie was about like it was all in like a metaverse type, and there was a kid playing video games, but like the other guy in the movie was the character that he was controlling, you know, and it was like, and then you just see all of this random stuff and advertisements. It was like, it sounds like they really just took a line right out of the movie, you know, and it's like, hey, that's great, we should do that. But
well, what are the odds that we aren't just the Sims?
well, whoever's controlling me has got a bigger problem than I thought.
Well, so did you ever play like Roller Coaster Tycoon or whatever, any of those games in school?
I know which ones you're talking about.
Computer class, and you know, you're like, yeah, let's put a $40 million roller coaster in and see what happens, even though we only have 5 people that come in the park and kind of self-sabotage on
great
purpose.
Investment.
Yeah.
I mean, that would probably make more sense than what's actually going on.
Maybe.
I mean,
I don't know.
Huh.
It's hard to say. I heard a fun stat that, what was it? 40% of all of America's ammunition comes from Russia. And they put a blockade or a ban on Russian ammunition. You know, you'd think because of the Russia-Ukraine war. No, that was back in August.
Yeah, before that.
Before all of it.
Yeah. No, I think it's mainly because they don't want you to have ammunition. That was
Yeah,
the whole thing.
You can't take the guns, but we can make it, if the gun doesn't have anything to go pew-pew out of it, then it's just a giant paperweight.
Yeah.
So fuck you guys for doing that, because I like my things to go pew-pew.
Yeah. I will say I'm not that steady with a slingshot either, but I'm going to have to. I got a freaking whole bucket full of ball bearings. Maybe I'm just going to have to.
Legit. I don't
have to modify.
I don't have any buckets full of ball bearings. I'm going to have to get on that.
Yeah. Used to get them from out at Duncan where I worked. There was a prop shop, and every time they'd overhaul and rebuild propellers off of an aircraft, they would ditch all the old ball bearings. And for a while I was just like grabbing all of them and
walk out of there with your pockets.
Like, no, I mean, I asked them, I was like, what do you do with these? They're like trashing them. I was like, can I have them? And they're like, what do you want them for? And I was like, I don't even know yet, to be honest, but I don't know. Just, you know, materials have developed a weird inkling for materials and repurposing things.
Well, yeah, you do a lot with the pallets. You've done a ton of stuff with pallets, and then I've seen some like the benches and stools and stuff you've made, and it's all repurposed stuff for the most part. I mean, some of it you probably had to go buy some angle iron and things like that.
Yeah, here lately I've had to, and that hurts because this stuff is super expensive right now too. Yeah,
where do you go to get stuff? Where's the best place to buy stuff? I've always heard Rivers is too damn expensive.
Yeah, so I had gone to Rivers.
That's where I always go.
And I've bought stuff from them for some of the projects, but I found a guy on Facebook Marketplace that is out by Raymond. I think it's Raymond. Anyways, he's on the way out to the lake out there off of like northwest 72nd or something like that. Yeah. But he's like a farmer, but he builds gates and stuff, and he buys steel in bulk. And so yeah, I think I've made 3 or 4 trips out there to just buy, you know, a couple sticks of metal, you know, for whatever I want to work on. But he's reasonably priced, and, you know, I'm like, I'll go to him before I go to, you know, plus it's a nice little road trip too for me, as long as my Jeep is running, because that's my my go-get-it vehicle. Yeah. Yeah, because all my trucks have like a 6-foot or less bed on them, and are therefore useless by most people's eyes. So.
They're all slammed and can't put a bunch of weight in them.
Yeah, but the Jeep has a roof rack on it, so I can put a 14, 16-foot stick.
I did see that. I was like, dang, you got a pretty legit rack on that thing. It's got like a bar every like foot on it.
So that just happened because I built a little, I don't even know what you'd call it, a tractor shed, a lean-to or something in the backyard. But I had 18 16-foot 2x6s, and I put them all up on top of the Jeep, and it just had the 2 bars. Yeah. And they were up there just great until I ratchet strapped them down. Then both of the bars just went and they just like, they kinked, and once I unloaded it, they never sprung back. So I just went out to U-pull it, and I was like finding bars, and I was like, I'd seen on one of the Jeep forums and guy who had done the same thing, and he put just as many as you could fit on there, and I was like, yeah, this is sweet.
Those are just straight factory bars.
Yeah, they're just straight factory bars. I just loaded them on there. I think there's 7 crossbars on there instead of 2.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which was like the first time I went and bought like the first 4 sets. I think one of the owners, the guy that recognized me, like that I went in there, and he charged me $18, and I was like, cool, right on. So I went back to get another 2 sets because I was like, I can fit some more on here, and it was a different kid working, and he's like, that'll be $42 or whatever. I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, they're $18 a set or something, and I go, oh, okay. So I was like, instead of bitching about it, I was just realized that I got a deal the last time I was there. So
then you got to pick those battles sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it's not worth getting into. But yeah, no, those are just factory roof rack rails that I put on there.
That's interesting. I like that idea. I don't hate that idea at all.
It was cool, except the last time I went to go get metal, I had all those up there, and instead of having 2 points of contact on a solid piece, it had like it contacted in the middle because it follows the curvature of the roof.
Yeah.
And so then I ratchet strapped them down in place though, and it was it worked, but it was just like looked like they were just going to roll right off the side of the Jeep. So I don't know. I want to make like an actual small low profile cage to stick up there, but then I'm like then I always go, why? Because I'm like,
it works.
Even the lift and the tires and everything, like ever since I got that thing, it's straight up a mall crawler. Like it has, I mean, it's seen some gravel roads, but I haven't found any mud because usually there was so much shit wrong with it that I was like, if I go into it, I might not be coming back out.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to walk away from it.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Yeah, that Jeep was, I always wanted one of those back in high school when they came out. And it was kind of a fluke deal because I was selling some S10 parts on the marketplace because I had gotten rid of my square body S10. I was like, I had this 91 GMC Sonoma white, and it was like, I love the square body S10s. I really want to do that, but I also have my two-wheel drive 02, the 2nd gen, and a couple other projects, so it's like I kind of sat down with a pen and paper to see like which ones needed the most,
and which one's going to be,
the 91 Sonoma needed everything. I mean, it needed drivetrain, it needed bodywork, it needed paint, it needed suspension, it needed wheels and tires, so it was just like at the end of the day, the other projects I have, it's like my 02 S10, I just need to put a motor in it and start driving it again,
LS swap.
Yeah, no, I picked up a 4.8 liter for it and a Terminator kit and some exhaust, and yeah, that's next.
Man.
If I could just stop tinkering with the C10, but it's like I just keep getting deeper and deeper into the C10.
Yeah. It's terrible.
But yeah, I've been accumulating parts, and then for what I don't have so far, I have a envelope of cash. It's like just waiting because that's the only way I've figured out to be able to do anything really is putting envelopes and that was actually, I think, the help of my wife because we took the Dave Ramsey class.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that a Dave Ramsey thing?
It was,
because I remember that. I implemented that for a little while.
Yep. And we don't do follow it every single thing. I think you have to kind of pick and choose with that because we don't all have $1 million plus in the bank and, can just walk and buy any house, so it's like some of us still need to maintain our credit scores. So
yeah, and I think with any of that stuff, you kind of take what they say and then you implement it as much as possible or much as what works with what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we did that with the business. That was one of the best things we ever did which is a similar thing as the envelope thing. Was the envelope thing based on percentages?
I mean, it depends how you're using them or whatever. For me, it's like we do the budget, pay the bills, everything. If I work some overtime or if we got a quarterly bonus or something like that, then she's like, well, what do you want to do with it? And sometimes she'll put it in one of my truck envelopes. Like there's like 12 different envelopes and like they're all different envelopes for different stuff. But it's like if I realize that last time we put money in my envelope, then this time I'm like, I don't know, like, what do you want to do with it? And we'll do something, house project that she's been wanting to get taken care of or something like that.
Something about having cash in hand makes it hard to spend compared to putting it on a credit card.
Because it's like, I had an envelope to replace the CD player in my crew cab pickup because it took a crap, and I wanted to get one of those ones with the Apple CarPlay. There's so many stinking options of these aftermarket doubled in decks with Apple CarPlay, and I'm going, I've always bought Pioneer stuff. I like Pioneer. I like the tuning capabilities. I kind of feel like I know how to use them. But then you've got all these new no-name brands that are like, you know, $87 or whatever, you know. And I'm like, you get what you pay for. In the back of my head is going, but I'm like, but a Pioneer one I want is like $450. I'm like, do I really need that, or can I?
Yeah, that's
And so I've got the money in an envelope. Just need to take it to the bank and put it in there, and I just can't do it because I'm like, if I could find one that would fit all my needs for less, then I could take that money and put it in the C10 envelope, you know, like, or something, you know.
It is crazy that cheap back in the day, and granted, they're still cheap. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that, but cheap back in the day, especially when it comes to electronic stuff, used to be like, okay, this is your Pioneer deck and this is your no-name deck.
Yeah.
And completely different. This one would last like 3.5 days. This one would last forever. I don't know. That shit's come a long way. It's pretty nice now. This no-name stuff is pretty good. They've stolen all the good technology and just implemented it.
So especially then too, you go to like YouTube or Google or any of those and look like, you know, top 10 Apple CarPlay decks for 2022. And like, seriously, there's 3 of them on the list that are name brand, and the rest of them are Hyosung or, you know, like something I can't pronounce. And I'm just going, huh. So, but I'm like, what are they grading them on though too at the same time? Because then I found Pioneer that I wanted, you know, and I started looking, watching reviews and stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's the one I want. I can't find it anywhere. It's not available. And then I start looking into it a little deeper, and I'm going, it's actually a 2020 model. And there weren't any like 2021 models. And it's like everything's been affected by the microchips or whatever, the shortage of microchips, which I'm going, freaking blew my mind because, you know, I don't deal with microchips on a daily basis. But then when I start actually looking for buy something I want, then I'm going, huh. Yeah, I guess it's more because I heard people talking about that was a big thing with why the cars, you know, the new cars and stuff, but car shortages and stuff like that. But I'm like, wow, it's a bigger scale than that.
Yeah, me and Aaron were talking about the car shortage, and he was like, I don't get where all the used cars going. If somebody buys a new car, their old car goes on the market. Why are used cars getting so expensive? And I was like, that's true. Why are they?
Yeah.
And then I got this little app on my phone called Coparts, and I go, that's where all these cars are getting wrecked or flooded or hailed on or whatever, and there's no new cars coming in to fill the market because there's no new cars being made.
Right.
So the used car market just keeps getting dry. I bet you Coparts runs through 175 to 300 cars every single week, just in the one at the 420 exit.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of cars in the Nebraska area that get totaled every single week that go on their lot.
Yeah. And then there's some that get totaled that people are just like, won't give them up. Because I mean, the wife has a 05 Impala she's had for like 14 years. And I despise that car because I've worked on it, I feel like, more than my own vehicles, but she'll never let me do anything fun or cool to it. So it's, it's reliable, you know, like, but it got hit 2 years ago, the winter. Some lady tried to do a U-turn and then like didn't quite make the U-turn, and she just threw it in reverse, and Megan was already making the turn, so she backed into her and then took off, and Megan ran her down and made her pull over, which I'm like, that's my girl, you know, like I was so proud because I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I wish I would have seen it, you know.
Did she hold her at gunpoint?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, that would have been
maybe
cooler.
Maybe she just didn't tell me that part of the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, she had her pull over, and the lady's like, oh, I thought I just hit a chunk of ice, you know, or whatever. But like hit the right front corner, punched a hole in the bumper cover and pushed the fender back into the door, you know, like, and so I was like, I looked at it and I'm like, I worked at Miracle Workers Body and Paint, like way back in high school, and things have changed a lot, like pricing wise and stuff, but I kind of kept in contact with those guys. But I'm looking at it, I'm going, that panel. I was like, that's $2,200 worth of damage right there. And sure enough, we got to end up getting a check. Actually, no. They wanted to total the car out, and give us like $1,300. But I had just done a new rack and pinion, inner outer tie rods, wheel bearings on like all 4 corners, struts on all 4 corners. I mean, I just like done everything besides replacing the engine and trans.
$2,000 into it.
You know, and so I was like, we had the receipts from the parts, like no labor receipts because I did it myself, you know. But I'm like, but that saved us, and she was actually able to fight, and we got the $2,200 that the body shop quoted us, and I was like, sweet. And I told her, I was like, I'll just go to U-Pull it and get some. I saw Black and Paula out there the last time I was out there. And then, but it wasn't shortly after that. It was like I was looking at the car, you know, a little more seriously and stuff. Started seeing that like one of the rear quarter panels is starting to kind of rust through and stuff. And I'm like, it's just not worth putting the money into it. So I got it, like, you know, I fixed it and kind of moved stuff around to where the door would open up and it's drivable. And so I think she was a little upset that it didn't ever get fixed, but I told her, I was like, we put that money into an envelope, you know, to replace the car, like to, you know, like so like whenever we do sell it, we'll take that money and the money from the insurance
we'll
check.
have a down payment.
Right.
And
Yeah.
all that
And,
stuff,
so yeah, that was probably closer to 3 years ago, because then last year, one of the neighbors was backing down the road. Instead of like turning around in his driveway and driving out of the neighborhood, he was backing down, and he ended up hitting it on the left front corner, like the exact same spot, just opposite side of the car. I mean, all the same damage, everything. And I'm going, all right. She was upset. And I was like, I know you're upset, but I was like, this car's just making us money now at this point. You know,
Brandy's van was basically doing that. Yeah.
I was like, what? And same thing. It pushed the fender underneath the front lip of the door, so you couldn't open the door. And she's like, all bent out of shape. And I was like, look, I said, I'm not going to touch it until their insurance agent comes and looks at it. But I just took a pry bar and kind of worked it, pulled it out. I loosened the fender bolts, slid the fender back forward, and got it to where you can open the door and stuff. I mean, it's scuffed and, you know, it's just, but it's all cosmetic. And like I said, the car still runs and drives great. Other than, I think the thing she was most mad about was that it like shattered one of the hubcaps. And she's like, she keeps telling me, she's like, well, if I was going to be driving it, I'd at least replace that hubcap, because I've been driving it as backup whenever my shit's broke down. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like, they're not the factory original hubcaps. So, and I'd have to buy a set of 4, you know.
Can you get hubcaps?
I mean, just they're aftermarket. Like,
yeah, I know, but like I remember, like way back in the day, you could go to like Advanced Auto Parts.
Yeah,
and they'd
no,
have
I
like
think they still have them.
Hubcap aisle.
Yeah,
they could get hubcaps.
They do actually, yeah. Because I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, even those have gone up. I think they were like $60 for a set of shitty aftermarket hubcaps.
Now black wheels are so cool. Just take the Steelies.
Yeah,
and just,
well, that's what I wanted to do, because I don't know if you remember, I had that Mitsubishi Galant there a long time ago. That car. But when I put rims on it, I put some 19-inch wheels on it, and then I took the factory Steelies and had them blasted and powder coated at Dillon Tire out on West Oak, because it was like, you know, I don't know what it is now, but at the time they were doing $25 a wheel to blast and powder coat.
That's what I heard it was, but that's been a couple of years ago.
I sent Hensley out there. I told him about it recently, and he told me I think it was like 37 something a wheel now, but I'm not sure if he had a mount or dismount. But yeah, they used to do anything. They would do steel wheels, aluminum wheels, but I guess somebody complained about the quality on their aluminum wheels, and so they quit doing aluminum wheels. And I was like, some jackass ruined it for everybody, you know, because I'm like, seriously, like, if you're gonna bitch about quality for $25 a wheel to blast and powder coat, like, the only problem I think I'd ever had with a set of aluminum wheels was for the little Honda Civic that I had. The wheels came back and they looked immaculate, but the lug nut holes, I couldn't get the lug nut in one of the holes because it was too thick, like the buildup. So I had to chip it. I had to chip it out a little bit there in this one spot. I know, but I'm like, they looked amazing, and so I had them do that on those steel wheels for the Galant, and then I threw some snow tires on or something, and at some point I ended up just selling the 19s that I'd bought and had those Steelies on there. But it was awesome, because like you just hit them with some soap and water and they looked brand new. I had a guy at work all the time. He's like, geez, did you wax your wheels? And I'm like, no, I didn't, you know.
But speaking of car, how many cars, indoor trucks have you had?
Oh God.
Because you keep rattling them off, and I'm like, yeah, I don't. You've had how many Mustangs? You've had.
I've always wanted to go to the DMV and see if they could pull up a history for me.
Can they do that?
I don't know if they can or not, but I've wanted to look, because I remember telling people before I was even 30 that I'd probably had 40 vehicles like registered, like not counting the ones I just flipped, you know, like
or just like they're parked in your backyard. And
exactly,
done,
just for parts and stuff, you know. But I'd be interested. I mean, I could probably go back and figure out how many I've had since I've lived in my house on Thurston, because I've been there about 11 years. And even that, you know, it's over a dozen since I've lived there, you know.
Yeah, I feel like you've slowed down a little bit too.
I got married.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, it's a good thing, but yeah, it's definitely not bringing home random projects or stuff like that. So
it is. It slows the projects down a little bit when you have to worry about.
Yeah.
What's that parked in our driveway?
Yeah.
You didn't tell me you were getting another car.
Yeah. My favorite.
Oh, ooh, that looks new. I get that one a lot.
Yeah. My favorite T-shirt I've ever bought is like it says, "I promise."
I heart Bondo. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I need to get that one. Sorry, I need to get on there and buy some merch. But no, I bought this one that says "Just one more car, I promise" or whatever. And then on the back, it's got like the fingers crossed or something. Yeah. I wore that one a lot when it fit. But I put on a bunch of baby weight, and I put on about more baby weight than she did, and mine's not coming off. So
yeah, it's because you didn't breastfeed.
Ah, damn.
Yeah, that's a calorie burner.
I feel like I probably could.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't recommend trying it.
Yeah. No, it's it definitely slowed me down on the project buying stuff. It's kind of funny when I go to a swap meet or whatever. She'll tell me, like, I think the last swap meet I went to was the Fremont one last year, other than the Lincoln one this year. But I was getting ready to go, and she's like, "How much money are you taking with you?" And I was like, "I was just going to take $200 or whatever."
I was going to take all the envelopes just in case.
Yeah, just in case. And I was like, because I wasn't really looking for anything. It was just something my buddy Steve, and I think you've met Steve.
Yeah.
But it's like we just like to go to these swap meets and walk around, especially now we both got kids. It's like life's busy.
It's an excuse
There's no
to
time.
Get out,
yeah.
and hang out with the buds.
It's great. But yeah, she's like, well, she's like, yeah, how much are you going to take? And I was like, I was planning on taking $200. I was going to stop and hit the ATM. I thought that was the max on my ATM anyways. And she's like, well, you can take $300, but just don't buy any stupid shit. And I was like, well, I mean,
I'll be bringing $300 home.
Well, no, and I go, could you reiterate? And she's like, yeah, any of this like stuff you already have, like, because with doing the you were saying earlier about, I've done a lot of stuff with pallets and like some scrap metal stuff. Well, it's like I've become this material junkie. I see like scrap metal and I'm like, oh, I could make something out of that, and it's like, I at least have it organized, but to the point where she's like, yeah, don't bring any more home until you use up some of what you have, type of stuff. So that's what she was saying. Don't bring home any more stupid shit. And so then I'm like at the swap meet, we're like 75% of the way through and I haven't found anything. And she calls me, she's like, how's it going? I was like, pretty good. Haven't really found anything yet. And she's like, well, whatever you don't spend, you can put in the envelope towards your truck stereo to replace your CD player. I was like, well, that makes it easy. Now I'm not looking for anything.
Yeah.
And about like 10 minutes later, I'm like walking along and I find this guy selling, he's got like I think it was a little miniature like argon bottle. I don't know the sizes, but it was, no more than like 1.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
And I was like, I something about old metal cylinders, I think they're cool. And I picked it up and I was like, looked at him down the way. I was like, how much? He's like, 75. I was like, all right, have fun taking that back home with you, I was like, screw that, So then it was like 5 minutes later, we're walking down this other row and I see this guy's got a bunch of cylinders and they're like the aluminum, the oxygen cylinders, like the little skinny ones that you see people carrying in a little cart. And I was like, this guy probably high as hell too, but I'll just ask him. Cause there was one, like 3 foot tall one that was steel. Cause I'm like, I bought a welder, but I can't weld aluminum. I mean, not yet. I don't have the stuff. And so I had no interest in the aluminum ones, but I was like, there was one steel one. And I was like, how much you want for this? And the old guy's like sitting in his chair about 15 feet away. And he's like, he looks at me, acknowledges me, doesn't say anything, goes to get out of his chair and walks down there. He's like, I'm just curious what the hell you're going to do with it.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, me too. I was like, I don't know. I was thinking maybe I could make like a table or something or a corner lamp, and he's like, well, all right. How's $3? And I was like, sold,
Then you bought every single one he had.
So yeah, here's the funny, yeah. So he's like, well, what about these little ones, these aluminum ones, and he's got one of those milk crates with a dozen of the shorter aluminum oxygen containers. And I'm like, he's like, I don't know, how's $10 sound? Like for all of them? He's like, yeah. I go, and the milk crate? And so I was like, ended up carrying all those out. And then he starts digging through his trailer. He's like, I think I got a couple more, and he didn't even charge me for those. He just threw them in. So for $13, I walked home with like 16 oxygen cylinders. And it was funny because like the wife, you know, she's like, I told you not to buy any more stupid shit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't help it. This dude made me buy it. You know, like for those prices, I was.
You know, every time you kept saying those little aluminum cylinders, all I could think about was Toretto's FD RX-7 with his nitrous underneath the front seat. And I was like, that's what you need to do. You need to make like...
Let's do that.
Make a kick-ass nitrous system.
Because so far I cut one of them up and turned it into a wind chime, so that sounds way cooler.
Can we put nitrous on the wind chime?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, swap meets are kind of my... I don't know. It's like I don't need anything. You know, it's fun when you do need something. You know, like a witch hunt.
Every time there's a swap meet, I don't really need anything, and so I just go there and I'm like, yeah. I mean, that's cool, but not. I've only found a handful of things at swap meets, and all the swap meets I've ever went to. So I kind of like, I don't love swap meets, I guess, because most of it's just people trying to unload their garbage. Yeah,
and I like finding the people selling the cheap Harbor Freight style tools and stuff, because sometimes there's some really good shit in there, or stuff that's just like the consumables. Like Derek Turner got me like turned on to the 2-inch roll-lock discs. You know, like gets them there because it's cheaper than buying them online or whatever. You get a bag of 20 of them for like $15. Those things are handy as hell. You can get into all sorts of different areas, but yeah, it's like if you don't need anything. It was like 5 years ago, I think. Megan went with us. She likes going to those swap meets with us because she likes. She's big into organizing and doing kind of stuff like that. So she found some like the old like steel milk crates, like baskets,
and interlocking. Everything.
Got some of those and stuff. But what I was looking for that trip specifically was a stock radio for my 64 C10 Chevy pickup. And I had like a Google image basically of a faceplate, what it looked like. And like we'd been there for a couple hours, you know, and I looked through every radio that everybody had. And so like we get to this one stand and I'm like, there's a milk crate full of radios. And I look down and I'm like, I'm not even going to bend over at this one. And Megan starts digging through it. She goes, is this it? And I go, probably not. And I looked down, I was like, holy shit, that is it.
That's good.
Yeah. So it was like, that was great because it was like $5. And then I took it home and I completely dismantled it and only used the faceplate to put on my dash. Because I had a CD, built like a wood inlay for the glove box and put a CD player in there and kind of angled it at the driver's seat so I could see it. But I just wanted something to fill the hole in the dash.
Not have the hole in the dash. The dash wasn't cut?
No.
That's nice.
That was one of the, it was funny. So that truck, I bought it off of eBay from a dude in Louisiana. And I was living at Derek Turner's house probably since 12 years ago. And the auction ended on it. I messaged the guy. I was like, hey, I'm interested in the truck, you know, like, can you send me some more details on it, blah, blah, blah. And he messages me back and we end up, you know, he ends up calling me and we're talking. And I was like, well, I seen you had it listed for, you know, like, what was it, 60, I think it was like 6,800 or something. I was like, if you'd take 5,800, like, you know, cause I'm going to have to pay somebody about $1,000 to, you know, for shipping or whatever. He's like, you pay me 6,500 and I will bring it to you. So he put it on a trailer and drove it all the way up to Lincoln. And that was the first thing I did. I ran out to the trailer because I was like an afterthought, you know, like I never was really looking too closely at the interior pictures. And I jumped up on the wheel well of the trailer and looked in and I was like, holy shit, it's not cut. Because it was like, and after like putting the radio in there, it was cut. It was clearanced just a little bit like on the bottom, but it still had the 2 holes for like the radio knobs. So so I just took the faceplate basically and made it sit in there. So it looks like the factory radio's installed.
I remember on my dad's Chevelle and stuff like that, he wanted a CD player back when, and so I got pretty good at like mounting them underneath the dash and tying them in, or I think I put one underneath the front like driver's side seat and ran all the wires around and hit it all so that you couldn't see them, but you could still have some tunes. Right. And that was like right when remotes and stuff were starting to come out, so you could like still control it if it was in an odd location. Yep.
Yeah, it was nice when I had the radio in there because like I think I was trying to do the math on how many years it's been because I think it was 2016 when I successfully made it to Vintage Torque Fest with the crew. and I had the radio in there, and it was like kind of just nice to help mellow out the truck because, well, yeah, so like I'd put the insulation in and put carpet in before that, and it ended up being a really cold, rainy trip, and it was kind of
every other year seems to be that way.
Yeah. Well, and what I didn't realize too is like everybody else had been swapping out their rear end gears for like 308 or like highway gears. And so they were running like 80, 85 miles an hour. And I'm trying to keep up with them with my 373 rear end, you know, and I had the 355 small block with a turbo 400 trans, and I was turning like 4,200 RPM the whole way there. Yeah. So it was like the ongoing joke when we got back was it was like about 900 miles round trip with the driving we did while we were there. And I got 9 miles a gallon and used 9 quarts of oil.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, but it was so loud. And so like the radio was nice to have then. And now, when I did the LS, I ran the exhaust like, and that was the other thing was on that trip, the exhaust pretty much dumped like underneath the cab too. Yeah. So it was just loud. It was gnarly. But now with the LS and an overdrive transmission and taller tires too, and I ran the exhaust all the way out the back, like the last year's birthday cruise and Kingsman cruise, I'm like driving along because I took the radio out because that's where I mounted the Terminator, the computer, the ECU was like behind the glove box. And so, then now it's like cruising along at like 75, 80 miles an hour or whatever. And it's just me and my dad, and he's not real talkative anymore. And it's just like, so wish I had that music still, you know,
or at least a loud droning sound from the exhaust underneath.
Exactly.
Speaking of, so you've went all with the Terminator stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have an LS harness?
I don't think I do anymore. I sold it to Jeff Barron's. It's like $100.
Just buying everything.
Yeah. All the imports and LS stuff.
He's got a damn Prelude now.
I know. I seen that. It was funny. I just stopped by the shop.
So does TJ.
Really?
Yeah. I haven't known anybody to have a Honda Prelude since I sold mine, and the second that I get mine started, like everybody has one now. They're both 4th gens, they're both black.
Yeah.
It's fucking sons of bitches.
Yeah, the only person I knew that had Prelude before you wasn't the same generation. It was a 3rd gen, I guess. The ones that had the rear wheel steer or whatever.
Technically 4th gen still had that.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Okay. But a different body style.
Yeah, more the boxy, triangular, more looking.
Yeah, those are fun cars too. I don't know. I've never been a huge fan of front wheel drive, really anything, just because like if you do end up spinning them or whatever, how it just pulls the front end. And like I said, I'm inexperienced with those, so I'm like, I front wheel drives with power. I don't know what I would even do with that. So,
I mean, it's not as cool as rear wheel drive and.
Well, as you were talking earlier, I like going sideways, and I'm sure you can do that with an e-brake and whatever else. But
I never could. My Prelude's e-brake was never good enough to be able to actually slide corners unless there was like some gravel out.
Yeah,
that never really was my scene anyway, I guess.
The Galant was good at that in the snow, like when it was icy and snowy out. I'd go hit an empty parking lot and just freaking kind of just drifting it around. But yeah, it was just like a lackluster attempt, you know, and missing my rear wheel drive stuff.
Yeah, when you get rid of the rear wheel drive or the
rear was it what we always call that rear wheel assisted steering or something? It was sliding.
What was it? Rear assisted steering or something like that.
Going side fucking ways.
Side fucking ways. Grab a hold of second gear and give it a want and dump the clutch. Worked every single time. Yeah. As long as you were turning left.
Yep. Yeah.
It didn't work all the time going right.
No. And yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting then. So now you got the truck, possibly maybe. Yeah. Possibly maybe.
I'm like, when did you say the date was for the?
You got till October 8th.
I'd like to have it before that. I know that I always wonder too, being in the Kingsman car club or whatever, it's like I feel like my truck's apart more than it is together.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, and I've even heard people say at some of the meetings, they weren't talking to me, but something like like, well, if some of these people would bring their cars to stuff, and I'm like, hey man, I don't have 5 or 6 of them, I've got one, like,
yeah, or like, this person's never actually had a car in the club or whatever, but they've had a car, but it's just been in the process of being built. But that's part of
that's just, I mean, like, getting the LS swap done was huge. Like, I could have had help. I know everybody's always more than willing to help, and I was just stubborn on it because I felt like, man, like the group is amazing. Like, that Sonoma that you were talking about earlier that you brought up, Mike and Derek helped me so much on that thing. And, and I've helped and I've learned so much stuff helping them with other projects. It was like, I just wanted to do something kind of on my own and not feeling like I had to rely on other people. But now I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, now I could probably ask for help. But now it's hard to want to have anybody over because with having an almost 1-year-old infant, like, it's like, the garage is not far enough away from the house sound wise.
Yeah, and your schedule is so messed up.
Yeah,
because like, oh, the baby's up, it's teething or something, or
because like
guys, I gotta go.
Because the guys in the club, they're doing shop nights now, and I've been asked a couple times if I wanted to host. When I was like, I want to, I just don't know if I can yet, because it's like about the time that works on a weeknight for everybody is be around 7, and that's what time she's going down and going to bed. And it's like, well, if we stay in the garage, it'd probably be okay. But, like one person would go out and take a cell phone call and stand right next to the nursery window or something. And I'm just like, I don't know. It's just easier to not.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a window when your kids is once they can kind of start being a little more self-sufficient. Yeah. Then it kind of opens things up a little.
And that's
bit.
what I keep telling myself, and I keep telling her too. Is like everybody says it gets easier. I mean, it gets harder the older they get. Because then you start dealing with attitudes and everything else. But
attitudes are pretty easy to smack out of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. Can you still do that? Because I'm like, that's the other thing I always was hesitant about wanting to have kids. Is I was like, we were raised different than kids are raised today. Like, I don't know if you can still raise kids the way we were raised.
I mean,
to an extent, probably, as long as they don't go to school and talk about it.
Yeah, I haven't really had to snatch my kids up too bad in like a store, but I remember getting fucking smacked in the store for like, being a little smart ass.
Yeah, talking back usually.
Yeah, or like grabbing shit off the shelf and throwing it in the cart or something. Yep. But yeah, I think for the most part, I try to raise my kids about the way I was raised. Yeah. Try to be there more for them, like, and like support their sports or whatever, more so than my parents did.
That's kind of what everybody says, when it comes down to is just being present, like being there. And I'm like, when does that start? Like, does that start now or like when she starts remembering it? But I'm there either way. So
yeah. I don't know. Like, I feel like they do remember it because I think Harrison was like a year old, maybe just over a year old. And I'd started growing out a beard and it was like, it was really long for a time, but it was only like this long. Yeah. And we were on a vacation out in Colorado and all of Brandy's, 2 of Brandy's aunt and uncles and stuff were there and cousins and everything. And the kids, and they were at the grocery store, and I think I had hair. No, I don't know. I might have just been home by myself or had the other kids or whatever. And I was like, I'm done with this fucking beard. And I went in the bathroom and shaved it all off. Yeah. When they came home, they were like, who the fuck are you? And then Harrison was like, no, I don't know who that is.
No, like, I'm not comfortable. Yeah,
no, I'm not comfortable with this person around me and like crying and screaming. It's like, fuck off, dude.
That's funny because I remember seeing pictures like going through my baby book or whatever, and I'm like, Mom's like, there you are, and I'm like, who's holding me? And she's like, that's Dad. And I was like, no, because at that time my dad just had like a mustache and no beard, and I'm like, no, that ain't Dad. And I like look close, and I'm like, son of a bitch, it is Dad. It was like, huh, but yeah.
It is weird too to think of your parents as being 20-somethings,
right?
Like you can't really.
I can't picture that because mine were like 30-something when they had me. I was the accident or afterthought or as my mom calls me a blessing. My brothers call me an accident. Well, my oldest brother, anyways. Yeah. Because they're like 10 and 13 years older than me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So,
Whoopsie baby.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a.
Well, there's got to always be one of them, right?
Yeah.
So.
I know. I was just actually put that together today that I'm older than my dad was when I was born, and I'm going. Well, yeah, definitely didn't rush into it by any means.
No, especially since he had. Well, it seems like a lot of people that I'm friends with are like that way. They either have kids when they're really young, or Eric just had Cohen 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know either. He still acts like a 2-year-old. They still
I don't know.
baby
Like
that
he's
boy.
still, I seen him and he's mobile, and I go, well, he's older than mine. I'm like, it's like I know he was. Yeah, he's got to be 4. I don't know.
Well, and Jeff kind of was the same sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, so it's seeing that, it's kind of reassuring to me, because that was the other thing, was I thought for sure we were going to be the last ones in the group, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Tim and Lisa are pregnant again.
Oh shit, yeah, Tim.
Ryan and Amy Givens had one, and
you see, you're really name
Bryce,
dropping.
yeah, it's like Bryce and Allie had one. I'm like, oh, so yeah, we're not the last. We're like, we just almost started a new wave.
Yeah,
so maybe you guys got another one, on the
no, we don't. We don't. Absolutely not.
Yeah, a lot of people. That's it's funny too.
Physically impossible at this point.
Because everybody's like, so you're gonna have more, and I'm like, it's weird for me because I was the one that wasn't sure I actually wanted kids, because I'm like, which, and she was the one who was like, yeah, we're gonna have some kids, and I'm like, okay, well, she convinced me by sticking around longer than anybody else had, and I was like, okay, let's do this, and now I'm like, what? I don't want her to be lonely. I mean, she's so damn cute. She needs a sibling, And Megan's like, nope, this is way harder than I thought it was. And she is definitely an only child, So that's like, it's kind of just funny how perspective changes,
Yeah,
it's like,
she's not a puppy, so you guys aren't going to just leave her home all day by herself while you're at work. So
yeah.
And I will say too that I was like, I'm cool with 1, 2. Any number but 3, it could be 4 to 300.
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. But that third kid seems like the odd man out, like the third wheel on everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, that just seems messed up. I don't want to do that. And then we got outnumbered. And I said, yeah, I think that I think 3 is the perfect number.
Yeah,
That's
I think 3 is the number. I don't think
Yeah.
we need to push our luck here. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is it. And of course, Harrison always was a handful. His grandpa calls him Hurricane, and NASCAR and Hurricane, and he's got all these names because he's just constantly running around nonstop.
Yeah. I just thought of another one that not here yet, but on the way was Ben.
And Mal.
Yeah,
Ben too. But Ben's a baby.
Is he? Yeah, I know he's. I don't know how much younger he is, but
yeah, I mean, I consider all of us the same age, even though some of them are like 5 years younger or whatever.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, I think you were a year behind me in high school, but I don't know. All I ever remember was you coming on the ski trip, the church ski trip. Like, I remember that as like the focal point of like when we met or whatever. It was like through Travis was, and I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, because I didn't really have any. I don't remember having classes or interacting with you at school at all. But it was like church youth group, through Travis, and then after school, like the O Street stuff. Because I remember hearing stories about the Black Prelude decimating people with the nitrous and stuff. No, it was fun because it was like you raced a kid that was a friend of mine at the time with the black BMW, like a 5 series, or it was a 3 Series.
Yeah.
I think you completely surprised the hell out of him. I loved hearing it all the time.
I thought
he always had a little more. He was a little arrogant. So
yeah, I thought Chris own that car?
Yeah,
after?
yeah.
Did he?
Chris owned it first.
Okay.
Blew the motor up with nitrous, I think, if I remember right. Somebody can correct me. And got a motor put back in, and then sold it or something. So
yeah, and I don't think I raced it when Chris had it, but I remember it being Chris's car, and then Chris's buddy bought it. Was that it? Were they friends?
No, I don't know if they were or not.
Maybe I just remember Chris with that car.
Probably. But the kid that owned it, Steve, my buddy Steve, was with him when you guys raced, and I remember hearing about it because like Steve and I always joking around about because the kid thought anything he owned was the fastest or whatever and stuff.
I mean, I did too. I only owned a Honda Prelude.
Yeah, yeah.
I still get people like I was like, hey man, for what the car was, it was pretty damn decent, and they're like, I'll give you that. I mean,
Yeah.
but now you got to have 1,000 horsepower to even, and it's like,
I
it's
know,
so insane.
man.
It's retarded.
I'm like, I'm so torn because it's like I see people doing that, and I'm going, mate, no, I couldn't do it. But I'm like, I would have to focus on one project vehicle, and I'm like, I like my variety. I've always had that dream or that idea of like a different vehicle for each day of the week, you know, or whatever.
Yeah,
but
our
then
problem is we'd never be able to go to work because they'd all be broken.
and that's
down.
just it. Is it's like, you know,
drive the
I'm
same
like
car every day.
People are always talking crap or taking cheap shots at me, you know, like those memes or whatever, like all these cars and how many of them run, and I'm like, you know, like at the time I was like, right now I'm going, see, okay, if I count hers too because they're in the driveway, but I'm like, there's only one right now that doesn't run, and it's because it hasn't ran in 5 years. It has a blown motor.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to get to it because I'm going, if it makes it past the 5-year anniversary and hasn't been touched, I might as well get rid of it. But then I'm like, that's the problem though, is it's not worth anything to anybody else but me.
Unless you can find another Justin that's like, this is like, yeah, like, oh my God, S10. Oh my God.
Yeah. Because it's like I searched for 6 months trying to find the right S10 because I was driving a Honda Civic that I bought with insurance money after the Galant caught on fire and burned to the ground. I thought
So
I
this
could.
is a little while ago. This is what, like 8 years ago?
Probably.
Maybe more.
Yeah, because I think I had the S10 on the road for like 2 years before it blew up. Before I blew it up. But
Was that the Champagne one?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just been sitting patiently, getting pushed around the driveway, in and out of the garage.
The best part about that is it hasn't seen a winter road for
Right.
8 years, and so hopefully it's
Never actually.
keeping
I mean,
from-
it was that truck showed up on a transport from Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh.
When I bought it. So it was like, and I didn't drive it in the winter when I had it, you know, it sat outside in the snow, but it hasn't been driven in the snow. So I'm like, that's
rain
me.
and-
That's the value that I say I see in it, but nobody else will.
rain and snow, I don't think hurt cars. I think it's the brine
yeah.
and the salt and shit on the roads is what really kills the cars. But yeah, I don't know. There's tons of people out there, man. And if somebody is going to buy that or want to buy that, and then they're going to put an LS with two China choo-choos on it and completely destroy it.
Yep. No, I had listed it for a while because I was just like, and there was a couple people that were pretty serious that looked at it. And then, you know, they came and looked at it. And one guy came and looked at it twice. And then it kind of went crickets after that. But I was like, and I had dropped it down to, I think, like $2,500 or whatever, like as just a roller, you know, not running.
Is that a regular cab or extended cab?
It's a regular cab, short box. Ooh. So yeah, no, I'm totally like, I want to make it my little drift missile. I think would be great. I mean, like full on,
but
put a fucking handbrake in it.
But then you're gonna smash it up.
No, like I mean, yeah, maybe.
There's not one drift car that's not smashed up.
Well, but I'm not. Yeah, I mean, those people. Yeah, the competitive like.
No,
you can't compete.
I've never met a competitive drifter. I've only met
The
amateur
wannabes?
drifters, and they always end up trying to drift going onto the interstate on ramp and end up in the that big triangle ditch area right there.
Yep.
They always end up there or spawn out hitting a light pole, and it's like, don't do it, man.
No.
Just make a burnout monster.
I mean, yeah, I just like going sideways, and I'm like, apparently with the handbrake you have a little more control, but I'm like, at the same time you need like 600 horsepower. I feel like to be able to light the tires whenever you want, you know.
Just get yourself one of them there superchargers.
Because I think it was the middle brother, the one that lives in Colorado. Like I took him for a ride in one of the Mustangs I had. He's like, man, you need to get into drift racing. I was like, I'm honored that you think I'm that good. But what I don't think you realize is those cars have like 600 horsepower and those guys have sponsors because they go through a set of tires per race. I was like, I'm just having fun, you know, but he was just impressed with the level of control that I had. I'm like, but it was the level of control that you have with a basically stock 302. Like you add anything to that, it's an entirely different animal, you know? And
wheel speed, like that's the major thing. Like when you're doing a burnout in fifth gear or like third gear and you're going 150 miles an hour on the dash, when you let off, it takes a long time for those things to slow down to whatever you're actually rolling.
Yeah.
You know, as we're in like a 300 horsepower 302, our wheel speed's within reason, fairly close
Yeah.
to our mile per hour we're actually moving.
Right. Usually,
So
yeah,
it
you're
grabs pretty quick. We're not going to get out of hand, and then it's going to keep spinning for another 3
Right.
seconds.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, it'd be fun, but I think like, because that's the other dilemma I'm at is like, I've been told the 4L60 that's in the truck will work for a while. But the 4L60 that's behind a 4.3 V6 is built differently than the 4L60 that is behind a 5.3 V8. I think it's the difference in clutch packs. I was talking with Petska. So he said it'll work for a while, you know. So I'm like, I don't really want to deal with, you know, putting it together, driving it for 2 weeks, and then having to take it back apart. So I have the freshly rebuilt, well, it's got like 400 miles on, Turbo 400 that was in my C10 that he built. And then I tried to make it to Torque Fest that one year and made it like halfway and ended up having to turn around and come back.
Overheating issues?
Yeah. Like I'm trying to remember exactly what happened because that was a crazy, we stopped at that rest stop and then all of a sudden the MSD coil pack or whatever in my truck just randomly took a shit. So we took the HEI distributor out of Tim's car that was on the trailer, dropped it in my truck, tried to get the timing set, backfired a couple times. Backfired enough that it I don't even still know exactly what happened, but it started leaking a lot of oil after those backfires, and come to find out it blown part of the gasket out of the front of the oil pan. And so we jacked it up at one of the truck stops, and we went into the truck stop, and Derek was able to find this 2-part epoxy like putty mixture and like a plumbing putty or something like that, and made a new gasket. And we dropped the pan, put it back up, and like tried to keep going. Made it maybe another 60 or 70 miles, but it was just like missing and overheating, and it just was not happy. And I was like, I pulled over, and everybody's like, "Oh no, we're good. We'll keep with you." And I'm like, "No, man. At this point, I just want you guys to actually make it on time." So I was like, I just sat, let it cool down. I'd drive for like, you know, until it started getting warm again, pull off. You know, one time I was lucky, I pulled off at a McDonald's, had an ice cream cone or 2, 3 maybe, I don't know.
It's that baby weight.
Yeah. What's that?
That's that baby weight.
That was like pre-baby. That was just that freaking.
Oh, shit.
I'm so pissed off and depressed that this thing's such a pile. I'm just going to. But yeah, and then I think when I got home from that trip, I don't think I touched it for like 6 months maybe. Yeah. You know, because it was just like, I was just happy that I made it home, but I was just
so burnt out from it. Yeah.
And then it was just like issue after issue after even thinking I had it fixed, to the point where I was like, I'd already had the LS sitting on the stand for over a year, you know, and I was like, screw it. I'm done. I'm just going to do this. You know, I'm just going to put the LS in it, and, you know, can of worms later, and, you know, we're still there. So
they don't sound as cool, but
that's what people say, but I don't know. I mean, it's different. That's the one thing I'm torn with right now. So doing the airbags, I'm going to have to redo the exhaust that I basically just did. And I'd gotten so many comments and compliments on how it sounded. And a lot of people, you know, firm believers, you know, it's all the horsepower numbers and everything else. They're like, no reason to have 3-inch exhaust on a stock 5.3. You know, you don't make enough power to need 3-inch exhaust. I'm like, I know, but it sounds cool. You know, so like I'm stuck in that, you know, like, but one of the headers hangs below the frame rail. And so in order to make, when I was making the exhaust, I was like, you know, YouTube videos, I'm going, all right, these are my friends, you know? So I was just like, I pie cut a bunch of pieces and kind of tacked them together until I had, you know, something that would get it back up into the frame rail. And it worked, you know, and it's worked up until now. But if I'm going to bag it and it's going to, you know, lay frame or whatever, then
it's going to lay
header. It can't be lower than that. So
yeah, you can't lay header. That's not cool.
Which I was talking with Chad Nelson yesterday, as I'm going like, I'm not even sure if air ride's the answer for me, because like up until this point, I've had airbags on the rear for like the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Because a coilover broke, and it was cheaper to put airbags on the rear than to replace the coilovers, because I didn't do it like full on the right way, you know, like the, what do you call them? The, solenoids and stuff like that, you know, like, no, I've literally for 4 years been running the like 1 or 2 gallon Arbor Freight 110 compressor with an expansion tank, and I just plug it in before I leave the house, let it air up, and it's good for like a dozen up downs, because like the travel on the rear is maybe 4 inches. It's not really noticeable. So like with the newer C-notch now that I have in there, it'll be a lot more noticeable. But now I'm going, do I actually want it? Because I'm like, I would have to actually buy all the solenoids, buy like an onboard compressor and an actual switch set, because that's the other thing is I've been running a single paddle valve with a T in the line. So anytime I go around corners, it's just the air just going like a level. Yeah.
To the other
yeah.
one.
So it just handles like shit. So I'm like, at this point, it would be cheaper to go back to coilovers.
Couldn't you just do a single line into 2 ball valves or something and adjust it that way? I don't know.
Like
exactly.
I was gonna pick Turner's brain on that because I know they just did the air ride on one of Jen's Cadillacs or whatever. One of her many Cadillacs.
I think he said. I wanted to say tomorrow, but tomorrow's not Saturday.
Saturday, dropping the engine in the purple one.
One of them.
I think that was the one the engine was out of. I know I saw that and I was like, ooh, damn it. I've been on weekend shift at my work since like August.
Yeah.
And it works out great with the little one at home, and like I'm home 4 days a week and I'm helping out and I'm getting almost, it's like I tell people I don't think it's actually real because I don't think you ever actually catch up on projects,
No.
It's an illusion. But I'm like, I've had the illusion that I'm catching up on projects with having 4 days off,
Catching up on all the honeydew stuff and everything
on that
else.
stuff.
Yeah.
And, but on the downside or the negative is, missing car shows. And it's like, I still have vacation time. So if there's a local car show or like one in town and my truck's actually ready to go, like, I'd take time off to come to yours because I didn't make it last year. I don't remember, it was torn apart or I had to work. I don't remember. But yeah, it's kind of a give and take. I'm like, but the benefits kind of outweighed the negatives when it came down to, because it's like I'm on this shift by my choice right now.
Yeah.
I could go back to days, but I'm like, it's, something about the little one at home and watching her grow up. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then once they get older, you want to stay on the same shift because then all their sports and all their trap meets and all of their Boy Scouts and all of their Cub Scouts and all of their other things.
You sound you sound tired.
completely eat up every single Saturday and Sunday you have. And then you're like, man, I don't have any free time because I'm working all week. And then during the weekends, there's something going on, or, the wife's oil needs changed, or, the truck needs the tires rotated, or I got to do this maintenance on that. And it's like really hard to find time.
Yeah.
Trap just got over. Luckily, that's a big time sucker, but it's fun. I don't know. He's pretty good at it, and it seems fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was. I told him at work, I was like, ultimately it's up to you guys what you decide, because you're management. But if it's good with you, I'm good to stay on this shift for the foreseeable future, because they always have a hard time finding people to go on these rotation shifts or whatever. And I've tried telling them for years is like, you find somebody who wants to work a shift, let them, because then it takes the pressure off of you to try and fill that spot.
Well, and then they're less bitchy about it.
Well, yeah, because they've had it was a 3-month rotation thing, and that I struggle with because you just start getting in tune with the new schedule, and then you're changing again. So
yeah, my cousin's husband worked at ADM plant or whatever in Columbus, and he was such a fucked up schedule. It was like 2 days nights, 1 day off, 2 days day, 1 day off, 2 days night, or something stupid like that.
That's a young person's game.
And it was like, how are you even like? Because you can't transition, but for whatever reason,
I was like, that sounds close to the railroad. I don't know for a fact. We'd have to talk to Hartshorn, but I know
the shift is so like, it was like boom, boom, boom. You would get used to staying up all night, and then you'd have to try to get used to sleeping all night right away.
And that's the thing that's gotten harder for me the older I've gotten, now being on like prescription meds and stuff, that it's like, if I change the time of day that I take those, then it kind of screws my whole world up for a little while, about 3 months to level out. And then it was, time to go back to the other shift. So I'm to the point now where the weekend shift I can do because it's still 7, getting up at the same time as I would on day shift, but I can't do the night shift. And if it came down to it, I think I'd probably have to find another job if they tried to force me back to nights. just basically a different department, because that's the nice thing about a big ass company like that is, you can bounce around, try other things. So, because I spent my first 7 years out there in the same shop that Eric Barons works in, doing the overhaul of the turbine engines. And then 6 years ago, I switched to the side that does like the removal and installation of the engines on and off the aircraft, and does like the on-wing maintenance, the stuff, that's not as critical, but it's just so much more variety of different aircrafts and different kinds of engines. Like the engines I spent 7 years working on, I haven't touched in the last 6 years because they put me on the team that works on like everything but those.
and it was probably like the same 3 engines over and over again.
Pretty much, yeah. They have,
and it is kind of scary to think that Eric is rebuilding plane engines.
He's been doing it now 13 years, and I know everybody made those.
Not one of them's crashed.
Everybody made those jokes when he and I both went into aviation. They're like, "I'm never flying again." Yeah. It's like, well, good thing you can't afford to fly on the shit we're working on. So it was mainly our old boss, but yeah, it was like, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I had kind of crazy that we're both still in it, and I don't know. He's a lead tech, I think, over in that shop. I've made my way to lead tech in the shop where I'm at. The turnover where I'm at now is ridiculous. Like that was the reason I felt like I never went anywhere or progressed when I was in the shop that I started in, was because everybody that was in that shop was older than me, and but they weren't old enough that they were retiring. Nobody was going anywhere. So for 7 years, I was like, kind of just the new guy. Both of us were like the newest guys in the shop, and then there was a couple of people came and went and stuff, and now I switched from that to the shop where I'm at now. I'm the old guy, and I went from like the first 2 years I ended up being senior technician on the floor because the other people got promoted or went and moved on, so I'm like, oh, senior tech on the floor after 2 years and still don't know shit. Like, because that's the thing where I'm at now is it's always a new. I mean, like, it was overwhelming at first because it was like they'd give me a task. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I've never done this before, And like for the first couple of years, it was, oh, I don't know. I've never done this before. And get kind of, until I don't know at what point it changed for me that I was just like, yeah, that's the job. Like every day you do something you've never done the day before. And
that comes with probably putting some miles on it and just like rotation and just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
Like I'm that way now with most everything we do in construction. There's still a few things that'll psych me out and I'll get a little nervous about, but most of the time it's just like, here we go again. Time to get up and go to work, or time to do this. So
anymore now I get those tasks like because I'm still after 6 years getting stuff I haven't been assigned to me, But now it's more of a and they give me a new person, and they're like, oh man, you ever done this before? I'm like, nope, let's go figure it out together, But it's like the mindset of like all those other things I'd never done. I figured those out. I'll figure this out too, So it might take a little bit longer, but aviation's pretty much, if you can read, I think you can pretty much figure it out.
That's why I'm not in aviation.
Yeah.
But I think confidence comes with experience.
I mean, I read at a 3rd grade reading level, but it's still reading. So, I mean, the cat and the hat. That was that.
Is that how the aviation books are written?
No, but they do have pictures. Some of them.
Look at the bright shiny piece with a cross on it and turn it clockwise. Oh, you dumb shit! You only know digital.
It's I mean, I don't know. We deal with a lot of guys that come that are right out of AMP school, and some of them realize that they still don't know shit, and then other guys think they know everything because they just graduated.
I've got an education.
Yeah, I don't think what they don't tell you in the AMP school is that about 20% of what you've learned in school, maybe 20%, is relevant to the actual job. I mean, most of it's experience and most of it's just like hands-on. But seriously, the most of it is documentation, is paperwork. And that's, I think, that one of my biggest pet peeves is because I became a mechanic because I like turning wrenches. And the longer I've been doing it now, the less wrench turning I'm doing, and I'm supervising other people, and I'm inspecting other people's work.
You're the one pushing the bean counter now. You're the guy writing all the
every once in a while when you get a job that'll come in like like engine R&Rs, removal and replacement. Like the removal I can do. I can turn wrenches and stuff, but when it comes to buildup, somebody else has to do the work, and then I have to inspect it, look at it, and then let them do the next step and then look at it, so I'm like, technically I'm not supposed to be building anything, which, desperate times call for desperate measures. Sometimes I'll build and I'll just get somebody else that's, equally rated inspector or whatever to come sign off my work. But
so the guy that is building it has to have somebody sign off on it. So you have to have two eyes on it to make sure
that's
it's
the
right.
policy. And then some things are actually 3 sets of eyes too, if it's like a really critical, like, hanging an engine on an aircraft is one of those. The mount bolts, they want three sets of people looking at those and watching those torques. Yeah. Yeah, it looks good from my house, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It probably doesn't fly in the air, I guess, if it looks good for my house, because that's the common construction one. It looks good for my house.
Right, yeah.
I always tell my customers, I go, I don't have to live here, so it's where the hell you want me to do.
Yeah.
You can do the ugliest thing to me. I don't give a shit.
I explained that because I'd said that the other day at work, and one of the guys was like, kind of give me a cross eye, like, whoa, what are you talking about? Because I said, no, it looks good for my house. I was like, I'm sorry. That came from my other lifetime, my other career, finishing concrete. Yep, looks good for my house. Or my favorite was always working at the boss's house, and he'd say, looks good enough for Hoots 4. He's an asshole.
Oh.
And it was him. It was him talking about himself. And I'm like, hey, if you can say that, then so can we, right?
Yeah.
Apparently not.
Turns out, no, that's not the case.
Apparently he wasn't cool with
I can call myself an asshole all day long, but fuck you, assholes. So, all right. Well,
I know a guy that used to work for you, like off and on part-time. So yeah.
Well, I don't know anybody. Nobody in this room.
Just helping with concrete projects.
Yeah, just concrete projects. I don't think I knew you back when we poured this slab. I don't think you helped with this.
No, I just helped with the house.
You're
the
dumb,
driveway.
You dumb motherfucker.
I know, right?
The house.
And I still talk to you. Like,
yeah.
I was just telling somebody else. I was like, I think they were talking like worst day at work ever, and I was like, I said something, and then I was like, no, actually, I'm gonna have to take that back. I think it was a time I was helping a buddy, and it was a pump truck, because we were talking about pump trucks and hauling hoses and stuff, because I was like, we were trying to figure out how they did this. They poured a floor in the basement of one of the buildings at Duncan. I was like, they did it when I wasn't there, and I was like, I wonder if they just had a pump truck with like 300 foot of hoses or what. I was like, God, that would be a bitch. I go, but it wouldn't be as much of a bitch as that time I helped Mike Early do his basement or his walls or whatever.
Did you help with the walls too?
Yeah, because we were just falling down in the mud. Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, so
then I showed back up to help with the floor too. Yeah, that's why you called me an idiot. Yeah,
the floor was fucking.
I just heard there was gonna be hot dogs.
Yeah, hot dogs, and I think Kelvin brought freaking Fireball or something, or tequila, and I almost died in my basement doing the floor. But
I remember coming out, and you were sitting on the sand pile with a Gatorade and a water. And
story's mostly correct. I was actually sitting on my table saw.
Was it?
Yeah. Right here.
I was a little delirious too, because I had just come out of the basement, and it was another. Somebody was asking me about stamped and colored concrete or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, I got a story.
Yeah,
got a story about that too. It was like, the fun thing about stamped and colored concrete is, after you start, you can't add water because it'll change the color of it.
Yeah.
And then.
Or you can't add water when the bitch spins the entire truck out in one corner of the basement.
Yeah. I remember we were like halfway through that and screeding still and standing on top of it.
Oh, I walked off of it.
Yeah.
And you can't hardly even see boot prints. It's just like you can see the little X's from my overboots.
And then we went back and stamped it.
Well,
portions of it.
I guess let me rephrase that. Yeah. It was still somewhat soft when we started stamping it, but by that back corner, because we scrubbed that fucker to death.
Yeah. It's still to this day the only stamped basement I've ever done or been part of or even heard of. I don't know of anybody else's stamped basement.
It was stupid.
Hey.
But it looks fucking cool.
I know. I was going to say.
The only thing I regret is not putting wire in it, because they've separated a little bit.
Did it?
Yeah. So
I was going to say, because I think the only time I'd seen it was shortly there, within a year or two. It was one of the New Year's or sweater parties or whatever you guys had. Let's see, it's been a couple of years since I've been to one of those.
Everybody's
remember.
like, that's concrete? Yeah, it's concrete.
Yeah.
Like, no way, that's fucking concrete? Yeah, it's fucking concrete.
Yeah.
One of the... And it was, it was like, we're going to spend $2,500 to put concrete in the basement or whatever. Might as well spend $2,600 or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe it was like, we're going to spend $1,800. We might as well spend $2,500. Go rent some stamps and go buy, I don't know, what was that, like it couldn't have been that much, 6.5 yards maybe.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Something like that, 6 bags of dye, 6.5 bags of dye or whatever. And
I always wonder too if the dye, it works as an activator because I don't,
well,
like, or if it was just like, the conditions. It was pretty hot that day too,
and I had been up since I'd been in that basement since 7 o'clock in the morning, and I think I'd no lunch, no nothing, water or whatever. Maybe had like a fucking snack or something.
Yeah.
Because it was like getting that thing prepped because we got concrete coming at 5 or whatever it was, at 4:30 or 3:30 or I don't know when it was, but we didn't walk out of there till 7 or later. Mm-hmm. So we were down there. I was down there for fucking 12 hours straight, prepping it and then pouring it, and then it was hot. It was in the middle of summer, August probably.
Yeah. I don't think anything went smoothly or as it should have.
No, when we were pouring
that. I was going to say, because even this out here, I was looking at it when I walked up, and I was like...
It's all spalling.
I was like, I did the top from the garage door, like the first out 6 feet, and I was like, hey, that looks all right. But then I was like, somebody used too much water in this area, because, that was my first thought was anyways, because he's like, if you use too much water, to help with the finishing, then you'll see that like pops out or something. But like, it's still solid. It's still one slab.
Yeah, we didn't ever have to use any water on that, I don't think. The only spot that got water was Eric was here throwing me slices of pizza and beer because I was in the middle and Frederick Gale was on the end. So and we were working this way. Yeah. And he tossed me a beer and I opened it and took a drink and set it down in my pans. And had kicked it over and not realized it, and then like 2 minutes later, Aaron's like, "Where the hell is all this water coming from? What the hell is all this?"
I remember him yelling. That's funny.
And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And there's just like a trail of water running down towards him, and it was my beer I kicked over and spilled. And Eric's throwing us pizzas and cleaning tools. Oh, those are good old days. Fuck concrete.
Yeah, I know.
I very rarely have had a good concrete experience, and I keep doing it.
I know. I've got a couple projects or pours I want to set up at the house, but I was just like, how to go about doing them. Like, it's kind of funny because all the let's see, I did it for the same company for 10 years, and then continued doing it on the side for about another 6 or 7. Yeah. Roughly 20 years of concrete finishing experience, and I'm finding myself lately watching YouTube videos of people using bag mix and how big of a job they can do like with bag mix, and I'm going, I don't think it's worth it. But the other time I'm like, I can't really get a truck into my backyard, and I don't really want a wheelbarrow at all. But then I'm like, the last couple of small projects I did at the house, I did it in a wheelbarrow with bag mix with like a hoe, just mixing them up. But it was like a 2 foot by 3 foot pad for my mailbox project I did, which I was like, that was the first one.
So you're like 6 bags.
Yeah. So that was funny though, because I kept saying to everybody, I'm like, 20 years of concrete finishing experience, I can finally afford to do a job for myself. And then I showed a picture. It was a 2 foot by 3 foot pad that my mailbox is on, which turned out pretty good. But
that's you chopping it up with a hoe and a bunch of bags in there.
Yeah, pretty much. And I actually ran short and had to run to Menards and get some more because somebody lied to me. But long story short, but
I always say 4x4. 4 inches thick is going to be 15 bags. Technically, it should be 13 bags, but I always get 15. So I just figure if one sidewalk square is a quarter yard, is what I figure.
Yep. Yeah. So this last fall, we decided we were going to finally have somebody put new siding on the garage. Mm-hmm. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, well, there's some things I want to change before we do siding. Like never really liked the back windows on the south side of the garage, and the door to the garage, from the backyard was like in the breezeway there, and it leaked terribly. Like when it would rain, water was like splashing and coming up into the garage and stuff. And so like the whole door needed to be replaced anyways. I'm like, if I'm going to replace it, I kind of want to move it too. And so like the guy gave us a quote for everything, and I'm like, yeah, fuck that. I'll go ahead and do that myself. And then you guys can put the siding on. So my father-in-law and I framed up the window, both of the windows, because I just wanted to get rid of the windows. So now I have more wall space for, if I want to put some cabinets up there, which I don't know. Sometimes I look at it and I go, I'm not sure what I was thinking, but it's done now. And the siding's on. It looks great. But we moved the door from like the west, facing the southwest corner, to like facing the south on that southwest corner because I want to do a patio out back off the back of the garage. But I think you've been over the place. Like the lay of the land is so screwy. Like the elevations are so screwed up that like the lowest point in the backyard is the corner of my back garage, back corner of the garage where the downspout's at. And so in order to do it right, I'm going to have to basically tear out all the concrete that's there. And I want to bury the downspouts, and then I'll end up having to do like a French drain or something like way out into the yard. And then I was thinking when I do the patio, I'll do like a drain and do a tee off of the line of the buried downspouts. I can't even talk, but I'm just looking at them like, yeah, it's kind of overwhelming. And my wife, I'm talking to her about it. She's like, so we're never doing that while we live here because that sounds like a lot of work. And I'm like, it is a lot of work, but I'm like, it's a lot cheaper, because I can do it all myself, but it's just definitely going to take time. She's likes to see like a project get started and finished like in a relative like
I'm not sure what that means.
No, like when you came and did the roof on the garage, she was like, that's how it's supposed to be done, started and finished, and the guys with the siding, like I kept joking with her dad because like he and I were going to attempt it and she's like, no, I want it done. And they ended up dragging it out over the course of a couple of weeks or whatever. And I was like, we could have done it.
We could have done a week and a half.
Yeah. She's like, shut up. It was, because then I don't know, the temperature was a crazy drop like after they did the siding, and then some of it started popping out and bowing off and stuff. So then they were coming back and fixing it, but it's all good now and taken care of. But I ended up, like I said, moving the door and everything. Well, when I moved the door, I'm like, it was going out onto a sidewalk. And so where I moved it to, there was no sidewalk. And I'm like, well, until we actually do that patio that we want to do, I still need something temporary to do. So I set up some forms and mixed up like 9 bags of concrete. I don't even remember the dimensions of it because I was going to do 4 foot by like 4 foot. And I was like, that's going to take way too many bags of concrete. And I was like, so I think it's ended up being like 32 inches, basically just enough to walk out over to the other sidewalk.
Yeah.
But now it's dumb because we got new gutters after the siding and the downspouts like across the walkway. And I'm like, like I said, it all just puddles up right there at the back of the garage. So I've lived there 11 years. I've known that I need to do some kind of French drain
or some sort of
something.
grading or something.
Yeah, grading. And that's what I'm like, to do a patio, because like my idea too with moving the door was not just for a patio, but I would love to do a covered patio, just extend the roof line of the garage, have a couple pier footings out there. People are like, that's a lot, but I was like, number in my head that I can't get out of is 16 foot. I just want like 16 foot out, roof line, covered patio, maybe a little retaining wall. Because then once with the retaining wall, everything can slope out away from it. And anything that falls or gets into the patio area would go down the drain to the French drain and out. Then I'll just have one really green area out in the yard where that freaking sumps at.
One spot right there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I said, I know how to do it all, but it's just, time, money, and resources. Because a lot of this stuff too, like I've wanted to dig out next to the driveway and pour that all in concrete. Like at first I was just going to dig it out and put some white rock in there because everybody's like, white rock's cheap, and somebody's like, you're a concrete guy, just put concrete in there. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably the way to go. Because I'm like, that's the reason I want to do it is there's an 8-foot area from the edge of the driveway to the neighbor's chain link fence. Actually, it turns out it's my chain link fence, and nothing grows over there because it's all shaded area.
Yeah.
So it's just weeds, dirt, and weeds. And I'm like, my driveway is pretty big, but I'm like, that's useless area right now. And I end up parking a tire or something on it when I pull over there anyways. So I'm like, just like to dig it out and pour concrete. But I'm like, try to find somebody to do dirt work. Like I found a guy, a skid loader on Facebook that does a lot of dirt work. And I messaged him. I was like, hey, I got a job for you. You want to bid? And ended up, he messaged me back and says, I don't have a dump trailer. And I was like, well, I mean, could you rent one? Or if I could find one, would you, and then
I know a guy that has one.
Just crickets though. Yeah. It was just like completely lost it. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'll just keep spraying dandelions over there for the foreseeable future. But
all right, guys, thanks for watching. Justin, you got anything you want to plug or any socials or anything?
Just make sure everybody makes it to the FTP Car Show.
There we go. FTP Car Show is a must this year. If you can make it, we expect to see you there. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. What were we gonna say?
I was going to say, maybe this year I want to make something for the prizes. You asked me last year, and I was just like, I don't got nothing.
Yeah, we're gonna do a raffle. All the proceeds
Yeah.
go to help the Child Advocacy Center. So we'll do the blind raffle or the blind. I guess what it's not really a blind raffle. I guess I don't know. It's not a blind auction either. So we'll raffle off stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hell I'm talking
Those
about.
are fun. I don't know.
So, but yeah, we'll do a raffle and we'll do the trophies and we'll do proceeds. We'll go to the Child Advocacy Center to help kids that have been into worse situations than we ever could imagine. So
That's terrible.
there we go. Now let's end on a sad note.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for watching, guys.
And
we'll catch you on the next one.